Today we're going to have a deep dive and look into the beef rump. The beef rump is made up of multiple muscle. Before we get started, let's talk about specification of Australian meat. The AusMeat Manual, which is a product of the Australian meat industry, sets out very clear guidelines on specification. And this is all in order to assist the chef find exactly what he's looking for. So on this occasion, we have a D rump in front of us. So I'm just going to roll that over, and just with my fingers first, I'm going to help find where that muscle component sits. And just by using my fingers, I can work my way through that muscle group, easily identifying where each group of muscles sits by that selvage of fat or silver skin. On this occasion, I'll be removing first the rump cap. And there we have now two products and what would be known as two subprimals. The subprimal rump cap from the rump specification and the subprimal roast beef. We're going to set that roast beef aside just for one moment, and we're going to just prepare the rump cap, which has been quite a successful and popular cut of recent times, made largely popular due to that Brazilian type of barbecue cooking, and quite often referred to as the picanha cut. Once again, as always, I'll ensure that we keep all trimmings and any fat deposits just to give you an indication of exactly what type of yield you should expect from these cutting exercises. And there we have our rump cap product. So the only tricks to the trade with cutting rump cap is understanding the direction of the meat fibre. And it's our ultimate goal as a butcher to ensure that we identify the direction in which way the fibre is running and then cut against that. And what that does very simply is it shortens the fibre length, and then with the orientation of that going into the mouth means the customer can bite between the fibres. Naturally, if we cut this the wrong way, the customer has no alternative than to chew through every single fibre, and of course that makes that experience naturally a little bit tougher. So only trick to the trade, we would remove that silver skin, we'd portion these steaks out and make a delicious rump cap steak. Putting that to one side now, we're going to concentrate on the roast beef. There's a real opportunity for us to actually value add this cut. As it sits, it's quite a lean cut, but as I said earlier, there's multiple muscle on this product, and when we turn this over, you can see what's affectionately referred to as the pillow sitting on the underbelly of that rump. So before we get started, I'd like to remove that. And once again, we just use our fingers to help us find where all those muscle groups sit. And before the knife even gets close to it, we've started to pull that muscle meat apart, so we know exactly where the knife needs to help us free away that content. And we've just removed what we call the rump pillow. This is a really interesting cut. Some of my colleagues in the MSA group have actually done quite a lot with this rump pillow. It's actually quite a good, delicious cut. And I think it's a valuable resource, the Meat Standards Australia group, as far as identifying the correct cut to cook method for a lot of these cuts. So you can go to the trouble of separating out that small muscle that you can see in front of you there now, and you would merchandise that as a rump pillow. And that rump pillow is perfect and ideal for things like salads and quick fast meals. For food service application when you're doing a lot of quantity, however, I think there's probably a little bit too much work there for you to do. So I would suggest we would just dice this up and put this into a ragu mince. Because as you can see, there's lots of silver skin, lots of yield that we can maximise into a high performance ragu type mince. And that silver skin, as we've talked about previously, will only add to the eating characteristics of that meat. So in this application, I'm going to show you how we identify where that line of sinew sits and how to remove it as cleanly as we possibly can. So we follow that line, you can see it right through there. We're going to turn that over with that side in mind, and with my knife, I'm actually going to cut down onto the silver skin and work my knife just sliding it across the top of the silver skin so I can open that right up and very cleanly take out the silver skin without too much loss in yield. And if you can see what I'm doing in the camera, you can see even though it's a straight cut, it's at a slight angle, and that's the perfect way to remove that silver skin without taking too much yield away from it. And as you can see now, we just need to use our knife through that. And just, again, very slowly let the knife do the work. We can pull out that silver skin very cleanly with as minimal yield loss as possible. So you can see here we have an eye and we have a roast beef, the rest of the roast beef. Now the eye is probably the prize of the roast beef, and as you can see, naturally it's coming out as a fairly natural round shape, which opens the door for it for multiple applications in food service. And there's not a lot we need to do with that other than preparing this and cooking this. And the texture is quite delicious, the texture is quite good, off a really well grown, well farmed animal. The eating characteristics are just sensational. So when you look for branded Australian product, that's what you expect. That's all of that, the learnings of Australia, the objective measurement points that are unparalleled around the world. That is why we can deliver the performance and the level of consistency that we are able to as an industry. So that cut alone, in my mind, in food service, it's a great carpaccio cut. And a great execution of that would be to roll this very simply in a cling wrap. And I've got a little bit here just on the side that I can work with. Now ideally, I would set that aside, put it in the freezer. Once it's frozen, I would temper it, bring it back, and then thin slice this on a deli slicer, and then shingle it out onto some parchment paper or grease-proof paper so that it can be served as a carpaccio. We're actually going to separate this piece into two portions. So we have three very similar type portions. What we're going to do then is just take an even slice through the middle of that. And from there, again, applying pressure to each piece, I'm breaking down the structural fibre of this meat in order I can exact a very clear round shape for my meat. And you can even see very quickly, when I start to massage that meat, the difference it makes on the length. So we're actually lengthening the whole piece of meat. So just that small amount of manipulation breaks down the structural fibre and makes what I'm about to do all that more simple. So what I effectively want to do is to put this directly into a sous vide bag. So to do that, just take a small amount of cut plastic. I'm just going to roll that up relatively tightly and have one end, but as tight as we can make that, the better. And we're simply going to insert that into, this is a vacuum bag where I've taken a seal straight through the middle of it. So we have two parts. So it's just one vacuum bag, and I've used the seal bar to make a seal down one side, and I've cut the end off. And all we're going to do is just open that up, push that meat in, like so. And now we have, with a vacuum seal on either end, a sous vide ready product. The sous vide cooking is going to break down a lot of that connective tissue through the cooking process, but importantly deliver you that centre of plate excellence where an exact internal temperature is evident and important. And then finally, we're going to look at the rump cap. So the rump cap as a picanha cut is a fascinating product. Anything cooked over coals, super delicious. Really simple preparation instructions for this one. Got a little bit of silver skin running this way. Remember the fibre direction. Just going to get again our knife underneath that, just take an edge, and we're going to let the knife do all the work. There is our picanha. That is the direction of the meat fibre. So we need to cut against that. And another question a lot of chefs ask me is, how do you get the most possible serves out of that? So I've found a technique that I think is very useful, and I'll demonstrate that to you right now. So to start with, we want a highly presentable steak. So we're going to talk about normal food service type steaks, you know, around that 250, 300 gram mark. And so with that, we'll take nice decisive cuts. So again, registering the direction of the meat fibre. We've got our first cut. Just bunch that up slightly. Nice type 300 gram type serves, portions with this. And you notice with the knife, I'm just making the one incision and then sliding the knife through. This gives us the cleanest possible cut we can ask for. And I'll just lay these out there for you now so you can see what we're talking about. Nice portions, ideal for food service, a great alternative, and a great new interesting steak item for your customers. And what you're left with is this small triangle. Lots of different applications for this, but this is the easiest cutting method I can describe to you. Just take a small wedge off the edge, turn it upside down, and we're going to butterfly cut from the fat side down, not cutting all the way through. So we're just going to take it almost to the edge. We're going to fold that out, remove one side of the fat, to finish off with our last portion. So there you have, basically, with the exception of that small cut at the end and a little bit of trimming, we have our portions of rump cap steak.